Hi, everyone. Thank you all for joining. For some of you, it's the middle of the day, probably even working today. Thank you for your time. Today we will host the Global Online MBA webinar in how AI improves your learning experience. And let's start with a very quick introduction. My name is Alina. I am the recruitment officer for the Global Online MBA at Maastricht School of Management. And today I will tell you a bit more about the MSM and the Global Online MBA, but not too much because we want to dive into our topic of the day, which will be led by our senior lecturer of marketing and strategy, Oliver Olson. Oliver, maybe you can introduce yourself as well.
Hi, Alina. Thank you very much. Welcome, everybody that's joining us in the middle of this busy Thursday for all of you. I am originally from the USA, but I've been working and living in Europe for most of the past 30 years. I am now almost 14 years with Maastricht School of Management in various roles, but mostly teaching marketing and strategy. And I'm here to tell you more about how generative AI in the new world we're in is both the good sides and the bad sides of it for your studies. So I'm looking forward to that after Alina's presentation.
Great. Thank you so much, Oliver. As already mentioned, we will go through a bit of the MSM elements in the program so you can get familiarized with it. And then we will dive into the topic. At the end, we will take some questions depending on the time. I would like to kindly ask you to use the Q&A chat box for any questions, not the comment box. It's easier for us to see your questions and take them up. Great. So a bit about Maastricht School of Management is one of the oldest schools, business schools in the Netherlands, and it was founded in 1952. So it has a lot of expertise expertise when it comes to business, and it's part of a big and popular university in Maastricht University as part of School of Business and Economics, SBE. It's quite an international school. We have registered 90 plus nationalities since 2018. And when it comes to the learning experience, we have a case-based learning methodology, which means that it's very hands-on and we use a lot of real-life examples. The idea is that you use what you learn in any of our programs in your professional environment. And MSM is focused on a lot of the market trends at the moment, and this is where we make a lot of decision making when it comes to how we organize our activities and courses and curriculum. We focus a lot on sustainability, but also on the innovation and the digital transformation side. Networking is also one of the best elements about Maastricht School of Management. We have 50,000 plus alumni all over the world. We like to say that if you go in a lot of the countries in the world, you always have a couch to sleep in. We do have a personalized learning approach. I will tell you a bit about that later in the next slides. And of course, it's the degrees are Triple Crown accredited, are definitely internationally recognized. 1% of business schools around the world can boast this honor. And this is a bit more in-depth of how we actually design our activities at MSM. And as you can see, innovation, sustainability, and technological revolutions are actually the pillars of what MSM stands for. And today we are actually going to tackle one of them, so the technology side, but more personalized to how you can use it in the learning environment. About the Global Online MBA at the Maastricht School of Management, I will display some key elements, but then I'm happy to take a personalized meeting and to discuss more based on your CV as well. Okay. So the Global Online MBA is an English taught program, online and part-time. So it's designed for professionals that are still working and have busy lives. It's Triple Crown accredited, and the format of the program is via live Zoom sessions. So we want to keep that classroom interaction for as much as possible. I think that is one of the how do I say it, wishes of any professional that wants to study. Ideally, you would go on campus, you'd be in the classroom face to face, but then that is not always possible, especially a bit later into your career. So then we do want to make the classrooms, even online, as interactive as possible. And this is why we developed this format. There are two intakes that are coming up, September and March. The tuition fee is 29,000 euros, and there are also scholarships opportunities of up to 20%. Again, within a personalized call, I'm happy to look at your CV and discuss more about what could work for you in this case. And the next application deadline is July 15. There is still time to apply for the program. When it comes to the class profile, we get a lot of questions about this as well. It's very international. Average age is 36. And then we do have quite a good split between male and female. There are 10 years of work experience on average. The minimum is 5, but we do have a lot of very experienced professionals taking the Global Online MBA at the moment. And you can, if you enroll in the program, you will actually collaborate and study alongside people from all over the world. The majority are from Europe, but they are also internationals that are living in Europe. And that's mainly because the format with the live Zoom sessions requires you to be in the same time zone. And of course, our students come from different industries. So there is a lot of learning from each other, and they have a lot of different backgrounds, but also profiles and learning styles and so on. So while collaborating, this is where, you know, a big part of the learning process even happens. We did discuss teaching methodology. It's very practical, a bit more diving into it. There you can expect in the classroom a lot of group work, a lot of discussions, a lot of case study assignments, and so on. So it's very, very hands-on. You will get a chance to personalize the MBA program mainly through, so besides the curriculum, which is, you know, general knowledge on global business and giving you the tools to use in your career, but you can also, depending on your career goals, choose a specialization either on campus, and we also have online version depending on your availability. And for your thesis, you can also choose between a business plan, an academic research paper, or a consultancy project. And of course, you will be in class via the live Zoom sessions, but you will have a very dynamic learning environment. And this is where you will find all the modules. This is where you will find even also grades and communicating with the lecturer and so on. Everything is done via the online platform. The application process, of course, I'm happy to tell you more about it within in a personalized call. Generally, you do need basic documents like your bachelor and your CV, so we can check eligibility and work experience. And we might require some other elements like English test and so on. But I'm very happy to guide you through the application process. You will always have support when starting your application at MSM. Great. So this is my scheduling tool. So if you already want to schedule a meeting with me to discuss the Global Online MBA, you can already book it through the QR code. I will send this presentation afterwards, and we can keep in touch. And last but not least, and then I will move over to Oliver's presentation. We have a special offer at the moment. Those who want to apply for the Global Online MBA and do that before June 1st, they can get a free project management course. And that you can do in July, in the summertime, before the program starts in September. Well, depending on which intake you choose, if you take September or March, but we will organize it in the summer. Yeah, so this information, I will send it all to you. Let's keep in touch. And now, the moment you have been waiting for, Oliver's presentation.
Thank you, Elena. But before you continue, one quick edit of something you said earlier. I don't want to scare away anybody. You said that it requires to be in the same time zone. It doesn't require it, but just keep that in mind. That if you are in Asia or in the Americas, that the live Zoom sessions could be in the middle of the day for you if you're in the Americas, or it could be late at night if you're in Asia. It's not required, but it's something to keep in mind as you apply.
Yeah, we do have students from Latin America, and then it's their afternoon, and then we have students from Middle East, and then it's a bit later at night. They do make it work, so this is something you need to calculate in the beginning.
Correct. Okay. Great. Thank you for that great opening act as we get into the headliner here. And so I will share my screen with you. And
I will also stop sharing.
Okay.
Oh, never. Yeah, it worked.
Okay. Great. So welcome everybody. As I see, we have about 15 to 20 people joining us, and I think that's great for you to follow along and see if you have any questions that we'll leave time for at the end here. So this is not going to be an exhaustive introduction to AI, but it will maybe give you some insights that you have not already discovered yourself, which is getting difficult in this age of 2025, because we're finding that most of the students in the world are getting better at generative AI than we are in the leading academia. And we're trying to keep up, but I want to give you some tips and tools on how it can help you with your studies. So you've seen my introduction earlier. There you can see my email address. You're welcome to email me if you have any questions or follow up later, and you'll get this presentation sent to you by Elena after we're finished with the presentation. If you have any questions, you're welcome to raise your hand along the way, and I'll try to stop and address those, or we'll leave some time for Q&A at the end. Let me start with a quick video that one of the professors that I follow, yes, even us professors follow other professors. There's a marketing professor in the USA called Scott Galloway that teaches at NYU Stern. He's also a very successful podcaster and investor, and he was speaking recently about AI, and he's been talking about it a lot. Let me play this short clip for you.
I'm actually very excited about AI. People are worried if AI is going to take your job. No, someone who understands AI is going to take your job. We are going to produce a generation of information warriors who will be able to leverage AI to become much more productive. They will increase their compensation, and the people who don't adapt, whether it's adapting to robotics, we saw, whether it was the printing press, textile manufacturing, the cotton gin, robotics, we had incredible fear. And robotics, in fact, destroyed a lot of jobs on the manufacturing floors of, say, automobile companies. But what we didn't anticipate is we could take that incremental productivity and prosperity and invest in incremental innovation. We didn't anticipate heated seats. We didn't anticipate car stereos. And the automobile industry now employs more people than it did before. This is a healthy part of the cycle. I'm actually quite optimistic. I think that it's going to have tremendous, and I'm usually a glass half empty kind of guy around technology. It's going to, I think, offer tremendous opportunities in healthcare, ability to take disease from or healthcare from a defensive disease-driven state to an offensive health-driven opportunity. I think this could disperse all sorts of wonderful things around self-care, mental health therapy, coaching people on their diet, disperse it out to their smart devices. I'm just incredibly excited about AI, which is unusual for me. I'm usually a pessimist. There's some dangers. I hope we don't make the same mistake. The original sin of the internet was we let it be funded by advertising.
So as you can see, there's a lot of advancements coming in AI. And there is reason to be excited, but I'm going to illustrate today that it's two sides of the same coin. It's a sword that can cut both ways. And it's something we're discovering and you're discovering along with us since November 2022. And we'll talk about that seminal date in a moment. So what I want to cover in the next half hour or so is want to go through some of the advancements in AI and understand how it's related to education and especially your future career opportunities. We want to look at some of the ethical considerations because that's a huge issue that we're dealing with in academia. And it's something that you need to bring with you to your conversation as you choose to join any academic endeavor. Then we're going to look at some strategies. We'll show you some examples of how AI can actually make you a better student. And it may surprise you to hear that we are leaning into AI, not afraid of it, but we will talk about where to be cautious about it. And then finally, we'll give a case study and look at some set scenarios and give some ethical considerations along the way. So that's what we want to cover now. But where are we in AI? You know, it seems like it's been forever since this entered our life. November 2022. Ask any academic in the world like myself, and we'll forever remember that date, November 2022. That's when ChatGPT first became available to the general public. And it changed our entire world around us. It was a fundamental change that I think most people will remember for the next decades. And we'll get into some of those changes, but what has happened since then? Well, we're now up to what's called GPT 4.0 and DALL-E 3. Those of you, I don't need to tell most of you, but GPT is the chat one, and the DALL-E is for image creation, which is getting better and better every day. 4.0, the newest version, and actually we'll talk where it's going next, really revolutionized content creation. It now integrates voice, vision, text in real time. You can upload photos, you can upload pictures, you can upload sound, you can talk to it directly. There's a voice function where you can turn on and just have a conversation with it. And this is really moving faster than we can really keep up with. This is what I call generative AI. Now, keep in mind that this is not, I don't use AI in general. Generative AI is the specific term for what happened in November 2022. AI has been around forever, relatively forever in our young lives. You've been using AI constantly for many years when you go to Google. Whenever you've done a Google search and start to type in a word, you know how it pre-populates or gives you suggestions? That's AI. That's actually even a type of generative AI. But that wasn't something that was there hovering around us, but not as useful as ChatGPT became. But I say this is generative AI because this is the specific type of AI that has changed our way of thinking in the last 3 years. But there is an evolution of generative AI, and this is what I call deliberative AI. This is a term I made up, but it's trying to illustrate the difference between what we're used to with ChatGPT and where we see these generative AI tools moving towards. So for example, if any of you have a chance to experiment with the newest deliberative AI, ChatGPT 4.5, you now start to see that it slows itself down to think. Some of them even show you its thought process, and we may see an example of that before we finish here, where instead of just trying to give its quickest answer possible, which is sometimes accurate, sometimes not, this new version of what I call deliberative AI is actually trying to mimic a human's thought process, asking itself questions, challenging itself, and actually correcting itself before it gives you a final answer. This can be especially powerful for science, math, and coding, but not just. Now, whenever using ChatGPT, we're talking about the specific product of generative AI offered by OpenAI. There are other competitors out there. There's Cloud. Well, actually, I spelled that wrong. Claude, which is from the company called Anthropic. And there's Gemini, which is offered by Google. And of course, there's others coming up. Facebook has their own version. X has their Grok version. There's a lot of competitors out there. But right now, ChatGPT is one of the standards that everybody leans on. The next levels in advancement we're starting to see is business intelligence, where AI is powering analytics and decision-making. I work with and consult with some software companies that work on corporate strategy. And now this AI, a company could just upload their annual plan, and it will already propose some possible business strategies and guide you through your next decision-making skills. So this is going to upend some consulting. McKinsey, Bain, Boston Consulting, Strategic Consulting may be upended by these developments. And then we are going to see your customer experience. Maybe you're already experiencing this now and don't even realize it. It's possible that if you ever call in and have a complaint or need to talk with one of your suppliers or companies you work with, you may be actually speaking with an AI chatbot. They've gotten so good that you cannot really tell the difference anymore. And this is possible. And whether you agree with that or not, it does give you more opportunity to actually interact in more efficiently than maybe before. Perhaps in the past, you'd have to be on hold for an hour waiting to talk to somebody because of a limited number of human resources. Now the customer experience has improved. You can actually chat with, there's an unlimited number of customer service agents could work with you with this new chatbot experience. So there is a lot of developments that we're seeing around us constantly. How does this work, for example, in our academic sphere? So here's an example of a research process in studies and the different ways in which AI could be an assistance. So if we say that at step one, and we're going to duplicate this actually before we finish today's presentation, I'll give you some samples of all these. You can start to use AI in the research design by suggesting data sources or generating ideas. Perhaps you have a topic that's interesting to you. You can already start asking generative AI, has this topic been covered? What are some ways I can title the topic? Or what are some research questions that would make this a legitimate topic to pursue further? And it can already start giving you suggestions, but you bring the topic. Then in data collection, you can use it to actually mine deeper and more efficiently through large data sets, and actually gives you access to data in all the languages of the world almost. Currently, with some of the tools I'll show you a little bit later, you can upload as a resource or reference articles you find in German or Spanish or Chinese, and it'll automatically make them queryable based on in English or whatever your languages you're using. In step 3, we'll see a data analysis. You can now start to use ChatGPT to help you create coding to do data analysis and give you create spreadsheets and create statistical analysis. And it can actually suggest topics on how to go further to gather data. And then finally, write-ups. And this is where the big danger point is, which we'll come to later, where it can help you with the actual final formation of your document. It can improve your writing quality. It can improve your citations and translation. But the important point here, which we'll come back to, is this should only be used for improving, not for generating. And that's where we see a bit of a conflict between the term generative AI and how we want to see this used in academia, because we don't want you to be using AI to generate your work, but rather to make your work better. And again, we'll give some examples of that later. So let's look at an actual example of some specific AI tools that we recommend for our students and a way they can be used. So let's go through a sample. If I'm a student in my marketing class, which I teach, and I really like one of the articles that Professor Olson has put up in class. And so I would first go to Research Rabbit. And one of the articles that I recommend for my marketing class is an article from 1988 called Consumer Perceptions of Price, Quality, and Value. So actually, let me copy that. So it's back there. And so here is this website called Research Rabbit. And we start off, we can have your different collections of information over here. And if I want to go deeper, here's the beauty of this. So let's say I've created a collection called Marketing Value Equation. Right now on the right, I don't see any articles, but I want to start with one article. So I'm going to put in that article I just told you, Consumer Perceptions of Price, Quality, and Value, and I search. And it goes and looks into the world and sees all the different articles that have been created with that title. Now, I, in fact, know that the one that the teacher referenced was this one from the author Zeitomel in 1988. And so I want to add this to my collection. Here's where the beauty of this first research tool through AI comes in. Now that I've added that, Off on the right, I start to see all the similar papers that have ever been written on this topic, just based on one paper. So if I say, what are the similar works? I can start to see in different categories, look at all these different articles that have been written around this same topic of perceived usefulness, effects of price brand information, and on and on and on. It shows me my original article. It can start showing me a tool. There's my original article and all the things that they came off of it. And so if I see, what is this more current one, for example, from 2001, and I can look into these, and then it starts going off. And so this is just starts to show you the world of data available to you, even just based on one article. And if I go back and add more articles, I can then get even more. I can add other papers, and I won't do that now, but I can continue to add more papers, and you start to see all the different works available to you. And you can start doing filtering, and it's a great starting point for literature review and finding other works in topics that you're interested in. And that's would be the first tool of Research Rabbit, which would be literature gathering. And there's not every work you do as an MBA will need you to dive that deep into literature gathering, but you will need it for your final thesis, and you will need it for some of your in-class work to bolster the academic confidence of the things you want to pursue. So Research Rabbit, great for literature gathering. The next step in the process of AI tools we'd look at is I'm a big fan of Perplexity. I'm not sure if any of you have discovered Perplexity yet, but actually it's one of my go-to AIs. And in fact, Perplexity is the type of tool that is causing Google stock price to sink, because now instead of people searching for things in Google, they're now going to AIs. And Perplexity is one of those tools where even if I'm heating up some chicken and I want to know what is the temperature and time, I'll go to Perplexity and just ask it, how do I heat up chicken? And it will give me those tools, but it can be even more complex, as we'll see now. So let's show here that Perplexity, we have topic selection, summarizing, compare articles. And I've opened up a tab here with Perplexity. And I've started with the article that I see before. That's Zeit-Hummel article from 1988. And I asked this query. And by the way, I'm doing all this live. I have not done this query before. I really like this article on the concepts of perceived value. However, it's from 1988. Are there other peer-reviewed articles on this topic? And let's see what it is. This, you'll see an example of what I call this deliberative AI. Because what it's doing right now is it's thinking. It's showing you its thought process. It's not actually giving me the answer yet. And actually, it says up here, it takes a few minutes. I could actually tell it to notify me and click this, and it'll tell me when it's done thinking. But it'll be quick enough. I think we can look through this. So now it's told me what it's going to do. And I can see that it's searching for information based on the things I gave it. And it's now starting to find peer-reviewed articles. Now, one reason that I recommend using Perplexity for an initial search versus ChatGPT is some of you have heard of the problem of hallucination in ChatGPT, where it'll make up articles and make up sources. It'll give 100% confidence on things that may be 100% wrong. And actually, we have a fun example of that. If you watch the news in the last 2 days, one of the major newspapers in the USA, Chicago Sun-Times, published a summer reading list. And it found that more than 90% of the books on that summer reading list were completely made up books. And they admitted they used ChatGPT or generative AI to create that reading list. So that's one thing we want to teach you to avoid in the academic situation, not chase made up data, but find real data. And one reason that we like Perplexity is famous for giving citations and citations that can be searched and followed up on. And so its chances of hallucination here are very low. So you can see it's still thinking, and it tells us it's finalizing up. And you can always go back later and look at the thought process it went through. And that's something we'll talk about a little bit later. Now it finally gives me the answers. And that thought process went away, but if I go to the tasks, I believe I'll be able to see that thought process that went through. Yeah. So here is my answers. And so just based on one article now, I've asked it to give me updated information and references. And it's already given me a lot of detail about the 1988 paper that I'm a big fan of. And then we'll see whether it finds the answers we're looking for. And so if here's the important part for an MBA student. is that once it gives an answer, I can come here and find the sources, and it gives me links to all these different articles. So I can already start looking and following up here. And what I would recommend is when you're doing research on a topic, you find the source articles here and then start saving them, which will get us to the next step in our process. So you can see Perplexity is great for actually starting to have a conversation. Research Rabbit will give you the sources, but not a lot of detail about the sources. Perplexity can start giving you more information about the quality of sources and where to go further. Then I recommend one of the next great tools that I've discovered in the last year, which is called Notebook LM. Now, Notebook LM, this is a property owned by Google, just as if you are the same as using Gmail or Google Drive or any other Google product. It is secure within your own username, but this is a great organizational tool. So the way Notebook LM, and again, if you haven't used it before, here I created a notebook. If I go back to my home page, you can see all the different notebooks that have been created in a lot of different areas, but the one I'm looking at now is perceived value in marketing. And here we can see I've added that there's that Zytomel document we talked about earlier, but I've also added many other articles that I found. This is a super place to start gathering your data. And this could be on anything. Right now, I'm giving you an academic example, but I've used this for fun things before. I've used this to see analysis to swatch, or if I've seen a movie that I want to have more information on, I can gather information there. So it is a great tool for bringing together all your data in one place. But if I get back to the one we were just looking at, which was, sorry, I have too much going on here. Oh, because it rearranged since I was just in there. There's two versions of this. So there's that one and the perceived value of marketing. So here you can now start gathering this. The nice thing about Notebook LM as a student for your studies is the amount of sources you can add. You can see on the left, I've added PDF files, but you can add text files, you can add audio files, you can add photos, but you can also add websites or YouTube videos. And this has usually been one of the limitations if you are using the traditional Windows or Apple operating system to save files and documents, is if you're saving files in folders, you can't save websites and you can't save YouTube videos. And it's hard to get everything together in one place. This allows you to start gathering both videos, websites, and sources into one topic-based notebook. You can even copy text. So let's say that you've been writing notes on your own, or you find some text somewhere that is not in one of these formats. You can also just paste text in, and it'll add it as a source. And each notebook, at least the last I checked, can have up to 50 sources in one notebook. But then the power of that becomes conversations you can have with the sources. So for example, I have here the Zytomel from 1988, Consumer Perception, and there's another one, Elements of Value from Almquist from Harvard Business Review that I really like. And I can ask it, what are the differences in perceived value between Zytomel in 1988 and Almquist in 2016. And since it'll query that based on the data I have in the notebook. The other nice thing about this notebook is it limits its subjects and its query only to what's in your notebook. Unlike Perplexity or ChatGPT, that will then supplement your question with information from the internet or the World Wide Web or every data available to it. This makes sure that your conversations and your research is based only on what you have added to it as a resource. And here you can see now it's given me information about the differences between the perceived value in these two areas. And this can be done on any level, and it's quite deep. And also based on the sources, it will show you where it based its answer on. So if I see this one, want to see where it got its answer, well, you can see here, it got it from Almquist, and it got it from these particular paragraphs in Almquist. I can close that back and I can see, okay, great answer. What about this answer? Where did that come from? You can see that it came from another part in the Almquist article. And so this becomes very powerful for just starting to have a conversation with literature. And this is something to keep in mind as you come into study. It's a term that we really like to use in academia. And even though this is a master in business administration, you are getting a master's degree, and we do have to combine some business tools with academic tools. But one of the phrases we really like in this is that concept of having a conversation with your literature, having a conversation with your material, having a conversation with your research. And in the past, that's been a bit theoretical. It would mean, when we said to have a conversation with literature, it would mean in writing. Are you querying the literature? Are you debating with the literature? But it's a bit theoretical. Now it's a reality. You can actually, with these tools, have a real debate with the literature. You can go into the Notebook LM and say, I don't agree with that. Why would you support that? And it can go on and on. And this becomes a great tools over here. We can create a study guide, and it'll generate a study guide to help you learn. So maybe for the next class that Oliver's teaching, he's told me to review these 7 articles. And so here with the study guide, there I have a study guide that can go through and in a compact format, give me ways to learn key vocabulary from those articles, and on and on. And this is something I really encourage you to play with if you've not done so. And most of my students are saying that Notebook LM has become one of the most valuable tools they have for their studies. Well, let's take it then to one step further. Now ChatGPT comes in. Now ChatGPT has a great role for bringing things together. So once you have done your literature review, chosen articles, done some arguing and discussion with your literature, you can then start gathering information in ChatGPT and use it for a final conversation. And so you can come in here. So here, for example, I uploaded our Zeithamel, and I said, in addition to Zeithamel, what information can you provide related to the concept of perceived value and the value equation? And so again, multiple sources give you multiple points of view and ways to approach these topics. And so that goes through and it reads the documents, it knows the Zeithamel, and I've uploaded it, so it gives an even better answer, but I could have referenced it without uploading it, and it still would have done a good job of finding the answer. And now, me being a teacher, when I look through some of these answers, I can see this is perfect. That is the perceived value equation that I talk about to our students. This does get into other topics. So, for example, Kotler and Keller, this is one of the seminal textbooks in marketing, where you see a great summary of perceived value there. ServQual, that's something we teach in service marketing, consumer value framework, and on and on. So this is a way that you can use the tools of generative AI to help your learning. If you didn't understand completely something the lecturer said in class, you can come in here and say, hey, the lecturer talked about this topic. Can you tell me more about it? Can you give me some lessons? Can you create a lesson plan? Can you create some quizzes? And so on and so forth. So this is a great way to improve your skills as a student, but we want to make sure that we are keeping it away from the evil ways. I'm using the word evil a little bit lightly here, but this can be used for bad too. You see, we're talking about Perplexity, we talked about Research Rabbit, and some of the benefits from those. If we continue to look at Notebook LM, again, I've summarized some of these things. We saw it's great for document analysis. You can compile and analyze data from gathered sources. It's a collaborative notebook. Now, Notebook LM allows you to actually share a notebook. So if we've created this notebook here, you can share it and then invite others to the group so that they can also be editing in the same notebook. This would be great for if you're doing group work in your MBA program. You can all be working from one notebook to have good inquiries and challenge each other. And it even suggests questions you can ask along the way. It also is important for deep dive conversation, as we talked about, and efficient organization, because you can start putting everything in one place. Your websites, your YouTube videos, your notes, your PDF files, and on and on. So it's really a great resource. And finally, it is private because it is within your own Google environment, which has the same security as your Gmail or your Google Drive or any other Google-based documents. So we've talked about some of these things and then how ChatGPT can help you. It can suggest methods for analyzing research data. So you can ask it. So if we come here, what would be your recommendation for researching this topic further? Something quite open-ended like that. Anything you can think of, you can ask it and it'll start helping you. And so it'll give you some suggestions and I can say, okay, great, that's a good set of topics. Can you suggest a 7-day self-study plan? Okay, and we can go through there. And then you can have a self-study guide that starts, all of this, as you recall, started with just this one paper of Zeitamel. And then it goes in and starts recommending other works that you can find. Now, one of the things, since I'm not in ChatGPT, instead of Perplexity, I would have to double check whether this book that is recommended, Value Disciplines, actually exists or if it made that up. Now, I do know that Learn, Serve, Qual, and CPV are actual themes and topics, and these are correct. But this is an additional level you would need to do to make sure that these are correct. But you can see how you can just by this create a study plan. You can ask it to put together quizzes for you and all other self-study topics. And these are all good uses of generative AI. It's also good for idea generation. So you can ask it, I am starting a new business and want some suggestions on how I can incorporate the concepts of perceived value into my business plan. Okay, so then we can see how it can start to give you a structured approach. It can start to give you ideas, brainstorming. And it can even, if I tell a little bit more about my business, I can ask it to give some suggested names for the business and logos. And again, the power becomes amazing. And even talk about some pricing options here and pricing models. It can be used for writing assistance. Now, this is where we start to get in the danger area. Because if ChatGPT writes your work for you, that's plagiarism. That's a different type of plagiarism, just as if you'd copied it from another source, but it's not your own original work. And this becomes very important because unfortunately, the temptation is there right in front of you to have ChatGPT, instead of help you research so you can do your work better, to have it do the work for you. And it is getting surprisingly good at it, but there are a couple warning things we want to make you aware of. First off, just from your own ethical standpoint, you're investing 22,000 euros in an MBA, not for somebody else to do your thinking for you, but so that you can know that your thinking is better. And we'll show some statistics later. The industry does expect you to be able to use ChatGPT to make your thinking better, but you're doing yourself a disservice if you are outsourcing the thinking and the generation of the text. Second, keep in mind that work that is not yours can be traced and tracked. Now, for the last 15, 20 years, we've been using software called Turnitin and other thing equivalent to look and see if you've plagiarized your work from other sources. Now, it is not yet as easy for us to use software tools to track generative AI created work, but those tools will get better with time. And keep in mind that if we cannot positively identify it today, there could be a possibility that 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years in the future, the tools do come out that allow us to positively identify which work was yours and which work was generated through ChatGPT or generative AI. And it could be that we come back and discredit your work, or eventually you may lose your degree. So it is important to keep in mind that you always be conscious that you're using generative AI to make your work better, not instead of your work. And I'll give some additional tips a little bit later on that. Keep in mind, as we see, that ChatGPT is a support, not a substitute for your original thinking. And so we have some publications at the School for Academic Integrity. I won't go through this, but we do give some advice to the students But I think it's important to understand that we're not anti-generative AI at MSM. We want to be a step in the future. We want to be ahead of where thinking is going, where the tools are going, and we want you to graduate from our MBA being an expert on using generative AI to make you even better at your work. And this is what the employers expect of you. So some of the best practice we're looking at: use literature discovery, research rabbit. Perplexity, good for initial research. In some ways, I would say Perplexity as initial research is replacing the role that Wikipedia used to lose for a lot of people. We never allowed students to cite Wikipedia. It was never a good end source, but it was a good starting point for students to get an overview of a topic and then to look at the references at the bottom of the Wikipedia page. Now we see Perplexities and initial searches are being a substitute for that starting point of Wikipedia. But then you need to verify sources and find peer-reviewed articles. We talked about Notebook LM for data organization, and then ChatGPT is good for idea generation, for fact-checking outputs, for maybe if you're writing in a foreign language, maybe English is not your first language, then ChatGPT is acceptable for you to put your written work into and then have it do some grammatical cleanup. But again, you need to be very clear, not tell it to rewrite your work, but tell it to keep your work intact, but suggest changes and improvements in the grammar and punctuation and other things like that. So we said it is a fine line. So why does this matter to your career? Because it's not just your academic time here, it is important for your career. And this is some statistics that we see coming out of industry right now. This is from last year. 42% of organizations say a lack of skill or talent is a top barrier for implementing AI techniques. What that means is that most companies out there want to use AI to make themselves better, more efficient, but they understand that their current staff and employees don't know how to do that. So one thing we want to give you as a tool when you leave the MSM MBA is that you have the skills to come into any business and use AI to improve the efficiencies and the operations of the business. So that's one of the important things why we do not ignore AI. Another statistic we see is companies are unsure of how to use AI. Right now, the return on investment is maximum 13%. But we do see that those who spend bolder see higher returns. And that's, again, someplace you can make an immediate contribution. And it is a warning here. A McKinsey study says AI can enable 60% of jobs to automate at least 30% of their tasks. This is not the scary part of AI. This is the positive part. This is the same thing as a student. As a student, AI can enable 60% of what you have to study and to work on to automate 30% of your tasks. So make sure you're automating the non-value added parts, not the parts that are adding to your thinking. And there's some people that say, well, why should we do that as a student? Because we're going to fully use the AI tools when we're no longer a student. And that's the difference between being a student in the academic environment and the business environment. We're training you to know how the fundamentals work. When you're taking my marketing class, I need to know that you, the student themselves, understands what the 4 Ps are, and understands what segmentation means, and understands how to define a good segment. Once we've verified through your MBA that you know what those underlying concepts are, then you'll probably be using AI to define segments for you when you're in the real world and to define the 4 Ps for you in the real world. But if you don't know the fundamentals underneath it, you won't know when it's wrong. You won't know the value added you bring to the table to make it even better. So we do need to make sure that these are things that you're learning yourself. Now I'm going to skip past some of these about the ethics, and a lot of this is changing quickly, but there are some things in place you need to be aware of also in the business world, especially in EU. So the EU, as of last year, has what's called the EU Artificial Intelligence Act. And it means that each company has to self-monitor themselves for their usage of AI and how transparent they are in that usage of AI. And so companies put themselves into 4 different categories, and based on the category they place themselves in, they have different rules of compliance. Now, this is a self-monitoring system, but keep in mind is what the regulators do is they can come in randomly and assess you. And if you have assessed yourself wrong, you can have a penalty. So let's say you're in a company that actually is in a high risk, like banking, in a highly regulated environment, but you self-identify yourself as limited risk and implement internal policies according to a limited risk level. If they come in and audit you and find out you actually should have put yourself in a high risk, you could be liable for very high fines. And so this is something very important in doing business, and some tools we want to teach you. And this is the process of using the AI in your studies and using it ethically is going to be great practice for you for when you get into the real world and need to use these tools. So there's transparency is something that's also important here. And this is something even in the last year, that deliberative AI has helped a lot with. Because Gen AI, when it first came out, is you would put in a question and a text, and it would spit out an answer, but you didn't really know why it spit out that answer, where it came from. But as we just saw when we looked at Perplexity, we started to see an explainable model. You started to see its thought process. It's saved, and you can go back and look at the thought process. As we talked about here, if I come here, the task, I can go through and see how did it arrive at the answer? What sources did it use for the answer? And that's also a good habit to get into of what I would call AI hygiene. Know how your AI is thinking and what it's thinking and why it gives you the answers it did. Privacy protection is also important. I don't know if any of you are aware of this, but if you're using ChatGPT, it automatically trains on your data. And usually one of the first things I tell all people to do is when they use ChatGPT, go to this page at the website called privacy.openai.com/policies. They didn't make it super easy to find, but if you come up here, you do a privacy request and you give the email address that you use for your OpenAI account, and then you can ask it to do not train on my content. You put in your email address, so this is my email address, and then it will confirm within a few minutes that is no longer anything chat you have in ChatGPT is no longer being uploaded to the cloud and trained in your content. Super easy to do to also ensure the privacy of anything work you do. Otherwise, be aware that whatever you load into ChatGPT could be shared into the cloud and could show up in somebody else's search result. So those are some things that you need to be aware of. I'm watching my time. We're getting close to the end here. It's always exciting talking about new things that are going on in the world of ChatGPT and generative AI in academia. But let me get through these last few slides here. So we talked about the ethical considerations. Academic integrity is so important, and I am not jealous of students today. When I was a student, and last time I did my MBA in the year 2000, we just barely had cell phones starting off. We definitely didn't have smartphones, and we certainly did not have anything like generative AI. And it was harder, but there was no temptation to have some other resource do my work for me. And I'm confident that everything I learned in my MBA in 2000 was my learning. I had to read the textbook myself. I had to fill out the forms and write the papers myself. Now you are tempted. It's right there in front of you to have everything written for you. And even though I encourage students to use generative AI, it is so important how you use it. So if I'm having you do a SWOT analysis, which is the strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats of a company, you should use Gen AI to say, here's what I think are some of the strengths of this industry based on my information. What do you think? Instead of saying, create a SWOT analysis for me. It's so easy to do. Gen AI will create it for you, but you will have learned nothing about what the reason is for a SWOT analysis, how it's worked, what the contents is. And we are now into a world where we need you to monitor your own academic integrity that you take with you. Proper attribution. Their AI can be used, but it needs to be appropriately attributed. And we will teach you how to do that when you become a student here. And critical thinking. You need to evaluate AI generation information critically. There's a lot of people that in the last couple of years have said, well, I'm not worried about ChatGPT or generative AI because it's inaccurate. It hallucinates. And so I don't use it because there's a good chance that it's going to give you wrong answers. I haven't leaned too much on that because it is improving so quickly that the hallucinations are already down. The accuracy is already up. And if that was my only reason for telling you not to use it, then those reasons would be gone and you would start using it. No, the reasons not to use it are not just because the AI information could be flawed, but because it is stealing your opportunity to learn. Do not give that away. That is not why you're paying the money to attend a program like this. You're coming to learn. And so this last slide I'll show you is, again, some tools that we've referenced that you can use. So we talked about ChatGPT, DALL-E for generating images. Gamma and Canva are two that students use to help them with presentations. Grammarly has always been around for many years for helping fix your grammar and spelling errors, and now it has AI-assisted writing in it. And again, the ethics are right on the edge of that. Be careful that it assists you, not instead of you. And there's some new AIs, for example, for citing your work, for keeping track of your work along the way. But with always use caution, because all of these tools are going to offer you to do your work for you. Now, we're not going to bury our head in the sand and say, do not use Gen AI. We know that it's out there. We know that you're using it. We want to teach you how to use it ethically and to use it well. So what I'll leave you with here is a few links. You can see one other one that I mentioned that is useful is otter.ai. This is a Audible. It will listen to your meetings. It will take notes of meetings, which is also good for research. You could, for example, if you record your lecture, if the lecture allows you to put on your recording and listen to it, you could put it in Otter AI and it'll make a transcript and allow you to ask questions of that transcript and say, hey, our teacher talked about value equation. Can you tell me what he talked about and where I can find that? And it will give you that. But the final thing I'll take away is Notebook LM. And this beautiful thing of Notebook LM is this podcast feature. So if you scan that QR code, you'll find something that I created. And actually, I just recently updated that before this meeting. So the brochure that you all have hopefully requested at the beginning of this meeting, there was a QR code for the brochure. Probably about an hour ago, or now 2 hours ago, I downloaded that brochure and I added that as a source within Notebook LM. And I asked it to create a recording. And so now I have an 18-minute podcast about the brochure. I'll just give you a couple minute sample of what that sounds like.
All right, let's dive straight into something really specific today. We are cracking open the brochure for the Maastricht School of Management, or MSM, full-time MBA program.
Yep.
Specifically, they're offering for the 2025-2026 academic year.
Yeah, it's a detailed document, gives you a pretty deep look at what they're all about.
Our mission today, to take this entire brochure and, well...
So let me forward a bit so you can see.
And speaking of navigating complexities, the program has a strong commitment to responsible management, high ethical standards, CSR, sustainable development.
So you can now listen to a brochure. Maybe you download the brochure and you've had a chance to browse through it, but you can put in this audio, and while you're out walking the dog or doing exercise, you can listen to the brochure. I can use Notebook LM to say, what are the English language requirements? Because now I can have queries with the brochure. And it will quickly find what are the English requirements for this program based on just that one brochure. Here we see an IELTS score 7 or higher, academic English or scholarship, and you can find more information there. So really some exciting stuff out there if it's used properly. So I recommend that you get familiar with these tools, but already start practicing now to use these ethically, because there are unethical uses of AI. And as you can see in a recent survey, 25% of the people are still using it for writing essays, blogs, or posts. But we do see more of them are using it for the proper way, searching for information, for entertainment, for learning new things, for brainstorming. Those are all the good ways to use Gen AI in your studies and to make you a better student. And so all of these slides will upload afterwards, but I've made it exactly to 1 hour of your time. And let's give you a chance to see if you have any questions.
We don't have questions at the moment.
Okay.
And if you have any questions later on, and I'm addressing it to the audience now, just let us know via email. If the question is for Oliver, I will forward it. If it's regarding the program, I will take it up myself. Yeah, so far so good. we can end the session, I think, Oliver.
All right, thank you, Lena. Thank you, audience. I'm happy to see that the number of attendees was the same at the end as the beginning, so I didn't lose any along the way. That's always a good sign. I thank you for your time, and we really hope to see you in class at one of our next MBA programs. Thank you for the time, Elena.
Thank you so much, Oliver. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.